It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Friday, January 22nd, 2016 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission to order. Roll call. Commissioner Witcher.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Littlefield. Not here. Commissioner White. Not here. Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Miller. Here. Commissioner George. Here. And Commissioner Yonkel.
Here.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion concerning the minutes of the December 21st, 2015 meeting, please?
I'll move that they be approved as submitted.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Witcher. We have a second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hale. Any discussion on the minutes? We have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 21st, 2015 meeting from Commissioner Witcher, second by Commissioner Hale. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. We go on to item 3, report on licensed taxi and record service. Sir.
Afternoon, Commissioners. This is going to be the fourth quarterly report for the last 3 months. On the driver's permit on the taxis, I got 59 new, 60 renew, 2 exempts, 5 replacements. On vehicle inspections, 52 passed, 6 failed. I had 4 complaints, 1 investigation on taxis. Limousines on driver's permits, I had 18 new, 4 renew, 1 replacement. On vehicle inspections, 6 passed. On carriages on permits, I had 2 new, 5 renew. On the vehicle inspections, 2 passed. On the pedicabs, 11 new, 3 renewed. And on vehicle inspections, 9 passed. And on the shuttles, I had 9 new drivers, 9 renewed, and 12 passed. Have any questions?
All right. Thank you very much. No items in the consent docket. We go to item 5A. Valar Transportation, LLC, to consider an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity from Valar Transportation, LLC, to operate 10 non-emergency medical transport vehicles in van service. Anybody here speak on item 5A? If I could have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes, and then please fill out a form when you're done, sir.
My name is Lance Butler, manager for Valor Transportation, 700 Northwest 7th Street. We have updated our insurance information and looking forward to being approved.
All right. Thank you very much. Can we have staff input, please?
Okay, you can see this item was continued from the December 21st agenda. We received a revised insurance certificate on the 22nd, and that's included at the end of this agenda. Staff is therefore recommending approval of the application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Thanks for your work, sir. We go on now to item 5B. Brian Fitzsimmons, AIA President, Fitzsimmons Architects, Inc., to consider a request for a mid-block pedestrian crossing on Northwest 23rd Street, approximately 250 feet east of the east curb line of North Walker Avenue. Anybody here to speak? Oh, hello, sir.
Yeah, we're basically probably what you were going to say. We're continuing this for 1 month. We're close to reaching a final design. So.
Okay. Thank you very much, staff.
He summed it up very nicely. This item is being continued. The applicant is still working on on their proposal for the project.
Okay. Do we have a motion for item 5B?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the application be continued until next month.
We have a second for item 5.
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Witcher. Any discussion on 5B? Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Witcher, to postpone, to what? To defer, thank you, to defer item 5B till the next meeting. Can I have your votes, please? All right, thank you for your time. Okay, we're going over to 5C. Todd Butler, PE, PTOE, Traffic Engineering Consultants, Inc. Consider a request for a traffic signal on Southwest 104th Street at a proposed commercial driveway to be located approximately 1,570 feet to the east of South Portland Avenue. Anybody here to speak on this item? Sir, if I could have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes, and please fill out one of these forms when you're done.
BJ Hawkins with Traffic Engineering Consultants, 6000 Southwestern, Suite 300. We're here just trying to get the approval of a traffic signal at a proposed development. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, staff input, please.
Okay, you've got our comments before you. This particular signal is being proposed at a commercial driveway intersection on Southwest 104th Street. The traffic study prepared by Traffic Engineering Consultants for it shows that it will meet warrants 1, 2, and 3 for consideration of a traffic signal. Should the Traffic and Transportation Commission approve the request for the installation of a signal, staff recommends the approval include all roadway improvements as identified and recommended by TEC in the traffic impact study submitted for the development, subject to developer bearing the cost for the preparation of the construction documents and the cost of the project for the traffic controls and roadway improvements. So we would recommend approval subject to staff comments.
Okay, do we have a motion for 5C?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hale, I'm sorry, yeah, with Commissioner Hale, but would staff comments? Yes. Okay, so we have a motion for Commissioner Hale to approve item 5C with staff comments. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on this item? Yes, sir.
Excuse me, will there be a turn lane included in this?
Yes, the developer is doing an eastbound left turn lane and a westbound right turn lane at the intersection.
Okay, any more talk on item 5C? We have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Schuline, to include the staff comments. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Okay, we go on now to item 5D. Mary T. Hill, Vice President, Heinz Interest LP and Traffic Management Division. Consider request to, 1, establish 2-hour metered parking on the south side of West Main Street from the west curb line of North Hudson Avenue to approximately 283 feet west of the west curb line of North Hudson Avenue. 2, establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the north side of West Sheridan Avenue from approximately 34 feet east to 52 feet east of the east curb line of North Walker Avenue. 3, establish 2-hour metered parking on the north side of West Sheridan Avenue from approximately 52 feet east to 128 feet east of the east curb line of North Walker Avenue. 4, establish a full-time passenger loading zone on the north side of West Sheridan Avenue from approximately 138 feet west to 200 feet west of the west curb line of North Hudson Avenue. And 5, establish a full-time passenger loading zone on the west side of North Hudson Avenue from approximately 110 feet south to 150 feet south of the south curb line of West Main Street. Anybody here to speak on item 5D? Yes, sir, if I can have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name is Gary Nolan. I'm with Smith Roberts Balderschweiler, 100 Northeast 5th Street in Oklahoma City, and I'm just asking for approval of our request here, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, and did you fill out one of these yet? Okay, while we're going, could you fill one of these out, please? I think, yeah, he's got them. Okay, anybody else to speak on item 5D? Okay, all right, staff input.
Okay, you've got our comments before you. Essentially what this is a request to reestablish some on-street parking and a reserved space for the disabled. Back at the Commission's meeting in August of last year, the applicant had made a request to remove a bunch of the metered parking, a taxi loading zone, and a couple spaces for the disabled around the construction site. Since that was based on their conceptual site plans. Since then, they've completed their site planning work and have now proposed definitive locations where they want to see some of the parking controls reestablished. The only thing that's different between this and what they'd originally submitted is they're now proposing 2 inset passenger loading zone lay-bys. There's one that's on Sheridan Avenue, a little bit to the west of Hudson, and there's one that's about a little bit south of Main Street on the west side of Hudson. Both of these will be inset, and these are the ones where staff is recommending, if they're recommended for approval, that the Commission's approval note that they're made available, that they're passenger loading zones on a full-time basis. Because of the way the city's codes are written, after certain hours and on weekends, unless a loading zone carries basically like a no parking restriction on it, it would be available for parking use. I believe the intent here is for passenger loading, since I think it's anticipated there may be some like retail or restaurant uses that are proposed, so they're desiring these for loading purposes. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning 5D?
Mr. Chairman, I want to move for approval with the provision of the staff that the passenger loading zone be considered on a full-time basis.
Okay, do we have a second on 5D?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Witcher. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5D from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Witcher, which does include staff comment. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Thank you very much. Okay, we go on now to item 5E. Jonathan Hussel, P.E., President and Project Manager, Path Engineering, Design and Urbanism, PLLC. Consider request to, 1, establish 2-hour time-limited parking on the east side of North Sheridan Avenue from Northwest 10th Street to Northwest 11th Street. Establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the east side of North Chartel Avenue from approximately 27 feet south to 66 feet south of the existing south curb line of Northwest 11th Street. And 3, remove 5-hour metered parking on the south side of Northwest 11th Street from North Chartel to North Lee Avenue. Anybody here to speak on this item? Yes, sir, if I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Jonathan Heisel with Path Engineering. My address is 1805 Council Bluff Drive. Appreciate your time, Council Commissioners. I would like to highlight a few things on the proposed layouts. One of the things mentioned in the review comments was didn't understand the configuration revisions proposed, and I would like to highlight a few things on that. One, there's an existing ONG gas line that's right there on the east side of the curb running along Chartel. It's a 12-inch line, so it's a considerable line, would cost a considerable amount of money. So it's too close, and so we slid the curb and created the bump out to create a safer pedestrian corridor, both for the north-south movement, and we recommended that for the east-west movement on the south side of the intersection of 10th Street, of Leavitt Street, excuse me. We also wanted to highlight that the existing building will be at a zero lot line, so it really creates some constraints there with proposed trees for the parking areas and everything like that. So that's another reason to do the bump out, create a protection area for the parked cars. And the traffic is low as identified in the report, so I just wanted to highlight that this is a slower area. I think we're going to see a lot more pedestrians, obviously, with the lift adjacent to this project, and then this will be a cool little project right there on the east side of the lift and then adjacent to the St. Anthony's and everything. I'll be welcome to answer any other questions you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Staff input, please.
Okay, well, you've got your comments before us. There is similar parking that's proposed on the west side of Chartel from this particular project site. In that particular application, the developer of that project is insetting the parking so as not to alter any of the lane configurations on Chartel. It's our contention that it would be better if parking is to be approved on the east side, that it be done in a similar manner. One of our primary concerns is that with the bump out that'll be built on the southeast corner of Chartel and Northwest 11th Street, is that it forces an offset in the alignment of both 11th Street and Chartel. Yes, currently traffic is not all that heavy on Chartel at the moment. However, at this point in time, we don't have the opening of the lift apartments on the west side, plus any other additional development that may be going in. Our traffic counts on Chartel show that we're currently running just about 2,700 vehicles per day on that particular roadway. I imagine it will probably rise noticeably with the opening of the apartments. So it's for that reason that staff is recommending that, if considered by the commission, that the parking ought to be inset so that it does not force a change in the alignment on either 11th Street or Chartel. So action on the item will be at the discretion of the commission.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5E?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the applicant's request with the provision that staff includes that the recessed parking area be built adjacent to the roadway, similar to across the street, assuming that the gas line doesn't prohibit that.
Well, and we'll come back to you in a second. Okay, so your motion is to approve item 5E with staff and comment.
Right.
And input. Okay, do we have a second for 5E?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Hale. Okay, so, sir, can you come on up, and is there a concern with staff comments for what you want to do and what they're saying?
Yes, the unit, there's 250 units at the lift, so 250 more cars in 2,700 isn't that considerable, and we're trying to increase the pedestrian safety, shortening the distance for the crossing, and provide some protection for the parked cars. So the gas line would create an issue with what we're trying to do, both with drainage, with the trees located right adjacent to there would prohibit the tree growth. Couldn't put it on the other side of the gas line, and would modify what we're trying to do with creating a safer pedestrian crossing at the location. I would encourage you to take a look at this proposal in the area, and it's a thoughtful design that takes care of both the pedestrians in the area, the bicycles in the area. There's a roundabout that narrows the lane to a one lane, so it's not like there's a 4-lane situation. It's just north of the roundabout that's a 1-lane roundabout. So it's not like we're necking anything down for this. It's already a 1-lane right just south of there.
So if you could clarify what's the difference in what you want to do and what staff's recommended.
Staff's recommendation is to push the curb back and allow a 4-lane continue to the intersection, because they're concerned about the, and I'm suggesting it just convert to a 1-lane, leave it a 1-lane from the roundabout, just keep it a 1-lane until you get to the intersection. Then it'll, out north of the 11th Street, it'll break out to 2 lanes.
And staff, is that correct?
Okay, I'll add a little clarity here, because, they'd mentioned that you said there's about 250 units that are going in the lift? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was about to say, because like now for a single-family residence, typically those, the trip generation rate for something like that is about 10 trips per day. So just to say that there's a 250-unit apartment complex in there does not necessarily translate to that. It will only be the traffic count in this particular roadway will only increase by about 250. Ordinarily, if this is like a 250-unit subdivision, you'd be multiplying it by 10. So you'd be looking at about another 2,500 trips potentially generated from that unit. It's not to say that they'll all go on Chartel. However, in this particular area, probably 10th Street and Chartel will probably carry the lion's share of traffic for the area. With respect to like the gas line, do you have more information on that? I mean, is it like?
No, it's right there where we wouldn't be able to put any.
Buried at what depth?
It's like 3 or 4 feet.
I was about to say, because it's not, paving over something like that occurs all the time. That gas line's crossing underneath public streets at some point in time.
It's really regarding the building offset is adjacent, a 0 lot line building offset, and I wish I had a picture to show you what the renderings were for the offset. But the building's going to be right adjacent there. There's no room to put the sidewalk and then a tree before you get to the existing curb, and so it really changes the configuration. Plus, there's some opportunities for some detention or some green bioswales as well. So pushing that curb and creating continuing a 1-lane to the intersection is a thoughtful approach, and for the pedestrians as well, to shorten that crossing distance across the intersection. Oh, and for the north-south movements as well.
Do you have something?
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts that may not be totally connected. There's all of the traffic that all of the cars that come out of the parking garage at Lyft will be coming onto 11th Street. All of them. That's the only way in and out of that parking garage. So that's going to be the load, as well as there's another development at the intersection of 11th and Francis that will add load to 11th Street. So the I agree that misaligning those street center lines is going to cause a problem for someone, plus just bumping out into a lane of traffic the way this drawing indicates. Looks like somebody's going to run into it.
The east-west movements is currently, that's the current configuration. There's parking along the south side of 11th right now. I'm just putting a bump out there to protect the potential parked cars there. It's currently, I'm not moving the curb line on the north side or the south side of 11th. That's tying into the existing. So that's an existing configuration. It's a two-lane street right now. There's no modifications to the curb line on 11th Street. We're really, staff's recommending.
You're pulling a curb.
I'm pulling the curb on Chartel over to line up and create an opportunity.
The drawing that I'm looking at indicates the existing curb that is on the southeast corner of Chartel and 11th. And on 11th and on Chartel, you have new curb that projects out into the street from there.
Yeah, that's a bump out, but the curb line to the east of there is the same curb as it is right now, and there's currently parking there. So it's just a bump.
To my eyes, you're modifying the curb at 11th.
It's just a bump out to protect the parked cars. So that if you park the car.
Let me ask about the gas line.
Okay.
This 12-inch gas line that you say is there, it's under paving right now, isn't it?
It's behind the curb right now, behind the existing curb.
There's paving.
No, it's a buried 12-inch gas line that's behind the existing curb.
It's sidewalk. There's sidewalk up there.
It's in between the sidewalk and the existing curb.
I mean, in the existing condition, there's a curb, there's sidewalk, and there's parking lot.
In the existing configuration, there's a curb, there's some grass area, and there's a sidewalk.
So the distance from the existing curb to the property line is the sidewalk, the east edge of the sidewalk, is that the property line?
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's within a foot or two.
So you could have a building and you could have a sidewalk in the distance between the existing curb and the property line.
They've got a little offset to create a kind of a your space, kind of an amenity zone, if you will, between the front door and the sidewalk.
And that's in the right-of-way?
That's what those planting.
Yeah, so that's in the right-of-way?
So that pushes, no, that's in the.
If it's not within the property, it's in the right-of-way.
I have to look at where that is on the line. I think it's in the right-of-way, yes.
Okay.
Let me look.
So there's a revocable for that anyway.
Yes.
Just a general comment. I think there's going to be a lot more traffic. There's a lot more development that's been happening here besides Lyft, and it's actually 287 units. There's also going to be the other development, the other apartment development at 11th and Francis. And there's all kinds of stuff going on down there, as well as St. Anthony is continuing to build new parking lots along 9th Street. So there's going to be more traffic load on this, and I think necking this down the way it's indicated is not the most positive thing we could do. And it does seem to me, especially in an urban concept, trying to create an urban environment that you have the parallel parking close to the curb, I think it makes sense to push this back within the existing curb extents. That's my comments.
Question, because
Yes, sir.
the impression I got is this is more, we're losing a lane for aesthetics.
It's not necessarily aesthetics. You have a one-lane situation south of there, and so I'm just continuing that one lane to create a parking area. It is not just for aesthetics. It is for drainage, for the trees and for the walkability and safety of the pedestrians in the area that are definitely going to increase, probably 5-10-fold more than the car trips will increase, I would think. This is right adjacent to Midtown, obviously St. Anthony's and all that they're doing. This is going to create a safer pedestrian opportunity for those residents and those visiting this area. Neighborhoods right to the north as well.
Okay. That's assuming that you have more pedestrian increase instead of traffic. But if the opposite happens, then we've lost a lane of traffic.
A half a block of 2-lane.
Okay.
Because it's a 1-lane south of there. So it's just continuation of that. You're not adding, there's no traffic being added in between the roundabout and the intersection of 11.
I'd like to comment on a couple of things.
Okay.
Saying that we're going to create a safer environment,
Yes.
it's a difference between having this aesthetic buffer and then the parking to protect the pedestrians, or having parallel parked cars to protect the pedestrians, which seems pretty effective for protecting pedestrians. And then
Sure.
your
It is.
contention that we're at 1 lane, it's because we're going into a roundabout on both sides, north of the roundabout, south of the roundabout, east and west of the roundabout. It's 2 lanes in each direction. It's just a necking down to handle the roundabout. I think that's a kind of a disingenuous way to look at it. We have 4 lanes, both all the way around on the roundabout.
Right. Now, I think I just want to add one other comment. In our comments, we did note that as traffic would be northbound approaching 11th Street, if 1 lane was removed, so it was just down to like a single 11-foot wide lane at the intersection of Chartel and 11th Street, that means you'd have all movements, all turning movements and through lanes, traffic would share that one particular lane. Whereas right now, as you exit the roundabout, say like as you noted that the access to the lift apartments will be from 11th Street, any vehicle that was northbound on Chartel at 11th Street would basically would halt all traffic that was northbound because there'd be no means to pass and get around. And if, like I said, if the lift apartments are going to consist of about 250 units, it's probably in our interest to try and maintain some capacity at that particular location.
Okay, so the question back to you is, if we approve this with staff recommendation, what's that do to your project? And does it stop the whole thing? Is it something you can't work with?
I'd have to go back and visit with the developer and see what they wanted to do. I couldn't tell you. I don't know what that does as far as the cost of the project and what their vision of the project is.
Okay, good. Okay. So any other comments on item 5E? That's okay.
I have one.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I think that design kind of violates driver's expectancy to come around and expect to be a 2-lane. I'm kind of wondering how much consideration was given to the road user in this design versus the development.
They're traveling at a safe speed around the roundabout, and so and there is an adjacent. I know of another project that's being proposed or considered south of this project, and so to exit a roundabout and go to a one lane instead of splitting into a 2-lane situation seems intuitive. It seems thoughtful for the pedestrians in the area, and the volumes are, a 2-lane, 3-lane roadway can handle this low amount of volume even if it doubles.
Well, there's 2 lanes north of 10th Street, right? Northbound. So this is going to, you got a half a block there to make a decision to turn right or go straight, or get in this left lane to turn left. Right in front of your development, right?
Sure.
So that's what I'm saying. I mean, you're taking that away from the road user with your design.
And creating a better pedestrian opportunity.
Yeah, a pedestrian opportunity.
And reducing the exposure distance.
And that's
at the
understandable. You're looking out for your tenants but what about the road user there?
With the
We're
little volume-
sacrificing some of his options to satisfy yours.
It's not. Both are taken care of in this solution. It goes back to a 2-lane, 3 blocks north of here at Chartel and 13th. It's not like this is a huge north-south commuter road. It's back to a 2-lane north of 13th. There's 3 blocks in there, or 2 blocks in there, that it's a 4-lane.
All right, so if this motion got approved with staff comments, you'd have to go back to the user and let him know of what we came up with, and then you'd proceed on from there to see if it fits and if it can be worked into the operation.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and review what could be done.
Right.
Would you prefer to defer till you have an opportunity to visit with them? Because it seems like we're leaning towards going with the city recommendation.
Okay.
I mean, if you'd rather defer until you have an opportunity to visit with them.
Yeah, I mean, if we approve the motion that's been made, then you are forced into doing it the way staff has recommended. And if there's some question about you'd rather not do that, it might be wise to defer or
we go ahead and
ask us to just
or we go ahead and
reject
press
it.
on with the motion, go ahead and press on with the vote, and then if it doesn't work and there has to be some other modification, then they come back again with another package.
Yeah.
So, yes, ma'am.
What is the time frame, though, for him to come back? Does the 6 months apply?
Well, at this point in time, there's a couple things that would come into play. The time-limited parking and the reserved space for the disabled and the removal of metered parking all require ordinances. So until the applicant came back to us and said, well, they've decided to abandon, like say 2 portions of the request, but they still want to continue on with a third, at that point in time, we'd take that particular ordinance on. I mean, it can always come back and be revisited. If you need more time to discuss it with your client, if you've got time, because I don't think any construction activity hasn't started on the site yet, has it? And these parking spaces are not required to meet the number of parking spaces for the use because they are on the public right-of-way.
No, basically, if a 4-lane is maintained through here, the parked cars would be 5 feet from the door of the new building. It's just not space-wise. It creates a weird.
I think what
the front door.
we're asking
parked cars
is,
are right at the front door.
I think at this point what we're asking is, would you rather defer, or if we approve this, the motion that's been made, then, as Stuart's pointing out, the removal of metered parking and the several of these things can get underway. It's just we would be kind of forcing you to do the parallel parking along Chartel the way staff has recommended by approving this. If you visit with your client and that's not a good way for the project to go, then you can come back and say, hey, we want to change that. But this does allow some of these long lead time ordinance things about the metered parking, all that, to proceed ahead.
So is going back to your client and revisiting what you've heard from us something you might want to do?
Yes, it is.
And to defer for a month so you can go ahead and take our basic comments and go on back and see, and then come back next month?
Okay.
Maybe a modification. Can he modify this if they...
If I modify
Here's the thing. So what I'm asking is, it's already an item on here. If we defer it, then it stays as is. Can he pull it and put a whole new one in, or how does that work?
Well, actually, the item for your consideration is going to be establishing 2-hour time-limited parking on the east side of Chartel, however, by whatever means is most appropriate for the area. And likewise, it's establishing a reserved space for the disabled, also on Chartel, by whatever means is most appropriate. And the only other component would be removal of metered parking in favor of unregulated parking on the south side of 11th Street. So these particular actions, I mean, if the commission were to approve it, but not subject to having the curb extension over at the intersection, they say, well, you know, we can accommodate your request without changing the roadway. So, I mean, you could potentially vote this just the way it is, or it may be best at this point in time to go back and visit with your client, because they may decide that without the curb extension, they don't want to pursue some of it. They may decide that they may still want to pursue removal of metered parking on 11th Street, which is, you know, that without any curb protection should just be fine, because, you know, we don't have any collision history on 11th Street as a result of, you know, vehicles striking parked cars. So, you know, in that regard, that's not an issue.
Well, it's more of an admin thing to our council here. So if he asked to defer, two weeks from now he goes, okay, we want to change the whole thing, he can pull the whole thing and then come in with a whole new thing? Is that true? Is that something that could happen, or do we have to read this next month?
This could come up, and it could be, he could ask us to strike it, have already submitted the other application if he would like, his client would like another alternative option to be presented.
Right, or they can, or based on these, on what you're looking at, the time-limited parking, the parking space for the disabled, and metered parking, it could be redesigned so that those items could still be approved. They just wouldn't carry the changes to the roadway with them. Right. So, and I mean, that just by revising a site plan and resubmitting it, we could still present an item like this at the next meeting.
So proceed with, as Stuart mentioned, is what my recommendation is.
So we would defer this, and then you would work with the staff and either modify this item or change it or resubmit of what you might want to come up with. That you really don't want us to vote on it right now, is what you're saying.
Well, Stuart mentioned voting on the items and figuring out a way to accomplish both the configuration at a later time with these items approved.
Council.
Right?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Are not these three items tied to the layout in this current application the way it stands?
No, they're not. The layout can be modified. This really just establishes what's being approved and on what side of the street and about where along the street. That's all this is doing. But the format it takes, whether it's, you know, by altering a curb line so it bumps out into a road or by recessing a curb line, it would all still work with the way the item's described. So if they made changes to their site plans, this could still be accommodated.
So the plans that he turned in really has no bearing?
Well, it has a bearing in as much as they've shown like their accessible space for the disabled closest to the intersection. This is described where this is, you know, like item 2 specifically says, establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled from approximately 27 feet south to 66 feet south. If they revise their design such that they work with an inset, and now the locations say like 30 feet south to 67 feet south, this basic description still works.
Okay,
So they can do it by either sticking it out into the street or recessing it. It still works good because this does not say that it's an inset.
My only hang-up is approving something with their plans.
Right.
Submitted with it and saying, yes, this is approved. Then
now, if it's the commission's preference to be able to see the, you know, basically a revised design, then what I would recommend is that you consider continuing it to the next meeting so you can see a revised layout if that works with the applicant.
Well, it all comes down to the 1-lane or 2-lane thing, whether we take your staff comment and keep it a 2-lane, or we go with the applicant and go with the 1-lane, correct? Is that the issue?
The way he just said it, that is not part of this application.
Right. The 1-lane, 2-lane configuration on Chartel at Northwest 11th Street, basically all our staff comments there are doing is highlighting the fact that if the curb is extended, if that curb on the southeast corner is extended into the intersection, what it will do, it will fundamentally change the manner in which northbound traffic moves through the intersection. Because right now, as you leave the roundabout, say your destination is to turn left on 11th Street, there's another lane adjacent to you to the right that allows through traffic or right-turning traffic to be able to proceed through. The way it's designed right now, you'd be left with a single 11-foot wide lane, and every movement would be accommodated through that lane at the intersection. So if there's a heavy demand that, to go into the apartments for what, you could potentially queue up traffic. If there's a lot of southbound demand or something, you can queue up traffic, maybe back to the roundabout. Our objective in making the comments that we made was to try and facilitate, a reasonable traffic movement through the area.
So you are right. The motion on the table, the item to be talked about has nothing to do with 1 lane or 2 lane. Traffic Commission can do that. Go take a street and take it from 2 lanes to 1 lane. That's not an ordinance change. That's a Traffic Commission can approve that. But that's not even being asked here.
Right. That's correct.
So the point is, what was read in and asked for, as Stu is saying, we can approve today. But it has nothing to do with going down to 1 lane and approving a 1-lane road. Am I correct, ma'am?
I need interpretation on that.
Okay.
Can you tell me, looking from this map, I'm uncertain which one is Chartel and which one is not 11. Can you tell me which one is Chartel from this map right here?
North is up on this drawing. So Chartel is drawing on the street on the left side of your.
Okay, thank you.
And
Their request includes the removal of the northbound lane.
That's typically not, adding or removing lanes is not necessarily something that goes through Traffic Commission. I mean, the city makes
Right.
many public improvements all the time where we widen, like an arterial road from 2 lanes to 4 when demand is increased. But that's not something that's ordinarily considered by the commission. That's correct.
Can we not approve everything with the exception of the curb extensions? And just be that the end of it?
Well, and the curb extension is not part of the motion.
Well, I mean,
So that's where we're seeing from this talk right here, the 3 items has nothing to do with the curb extension and going to 1 lane. That's just what they're going to do and create, and the city would just accept it.
Can we modify the motion to approve the request with the addition that this remain 4 lanes?
Well, that was the staff input. That was the staff input was.
Well, I know, but with the diagrams that's submitted with it, I'd rather just have clarity.
Well,
and yes, we will approve what you're asking for, but it is to maintain the 4 lanes of traffic there.
Which was the staff input, right? Which was staff comment.
Yes, that was our recommendation to you, that, additional parking could be accommodated on Chartel, because right now it's no parking anytime on the east side. It could be done, but our goal is to do it in probably the most responsible manner for the area, just to keep some traffic moving without putting in a pinch point where none existed in the past.
So now that we kind of understand what we're voting on, which has nothing to do with the curb that we're talking about, it has to do with the parking. There's that one issue for us, but now it goes back to you. We approve it with staff comment. The parking is all approved. Like you said, you kind of like to get that out of the way and get that approved. And then the staff comment is mentioned that we don't want the curb inset or the outset and to go down to 1 lane, and then you would go back and see if you can make that work with your people. Is that kind of
Right.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Is that okay? All right. Any other discussion on item 5E? Okay.
Can we hear the motion again?
That's exactly right. Could we have staff input one more time, please? Let's have the staff input, the staff comment one more time on item 5E. Approve with comment. What is the comment?
Well, like I said, I'll just tell you, I'll just go ahead and read straight from the report, the summary of staff recommendations. That staff can recommend approval of the requested reserved parking space for the physically disabled and the addition of 2-hour time-limited parking on the east side of North Chartel Avenue to the south of 11th Street, provided that it is constructed within a recessed parking area built adjacent to the roadway in a manner similar to that being constructed on the west side of the street adjacent to the Lift Apartments. Staff can recommend alteration to the parking controls on the south side of 11th Street, provided that it is done in a manner that does not result in offsetting or otherwise changing the center line alignment of either roadway. Staff does not recommend modifying the alignment of these roadways to accommodate the addition of 6 parking spaces on Chartel Avenue. As illustrated, staff does not have cost to support the geometric changes to the Chartel and Northwest 11th Street intersections proposed.
And that's what the motion that's on the table is, to approve item 5E with staff comment.
Which means you will take it in towards the building and not bump out. I mean, and that's what you want us to vote on today.
I thought we were just going to vote on the ordinances and not add that and let me have an opportunity.
Well, but we have to, because the package that you submitted shows you going down to one lane, and this is just clarifying that the staff is saying, don't do those things. And we would, if we approve this, we would be agreeing with staff to not go to one lane. I think that's the biggest thing, just don't go to one lane.
Okay.
And I think that's the gist of the staff input. And then you would go back and see how that would fit into what they want to build on that site and how it would all work.
Okay. And there's appeal process as well? There's an
There's
appeal process, or no?
Staff?
Yeah, any item that's presented to the commission, if the applicant does not agree with, or someone does not agree with the decision of the commission, can be appealed to the city council.
Right, and as this would be a ordinance change, it would have to be read in at the city council, correct?
Right. At this point in time, since we would if say the decision of the commission is appealed, then it would be presented in two forms. There would be the appeal that they would consider, and then the ordinances going along this would also be presented following that. So depending on the commission or on the city council's action on the appeal, it would probably dictate what direction they choose to go on the ordinances. If the appeal is not upheld, it may be that they decide to strike the ordinance.
Right, because the parking changes we can't make happen. We only make a recommendation up to city council. Okay. But what you would appeal then would be the staff comment part of it. Okay. Is what you're talking about, probably.
And
okay.
Those parking spaces along Chartel, what is the purpose of those in your design? Are they kind of intended as guest parking, or are they resident parking? What is your?
Some resident and guests and visitors to the area, yeah.
Okay, all right. And then if it does go to appeal at city council, let me know when that's going to be heard.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say, and one thing that we always put in there, that any parking spaces created within the public right-of-way are not subject to being reserved for any particular user. The only thing that would bear any sort of like a reservation would be the space set aside for use by the physically disabled. But other than that, they're just free. Well, in this particular case, they would be free, but they would be subject to a 2-hour time use limitation.
And I understand the lift is going to have some retail as well over adjacent there too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's really good. All right. So we have item 5E, a motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Hale, including staff comments. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay. We go on now to item 5F. Brian Fitzsimmons, AIA, President Fitzsimmons Architects, Inc. Consider request to 1, establish 45-degree angle, 2-hour time-limited parking on the south side of Northwest 11th Street from approximately 180 feet west to 291 feet west of the west curb line of North Walker Avenue, and 2, establish a reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the south side of Northwest 11th Street from approximately 251 feet west to 291 feet west of the west curb line of North Walker Avenue. Yes, sir. Can I have your name, address? You have up to 5 minutes.
Brian Fitzsimmons, Fitzsimmons Architects, 2721 North Walker. Basically to provide angled parking off of, coincidentally, 11th Street. It's basically reversing the parking that is currently straight in front of the building, and there's no real pedestrian access, so it's making it, we understand, public parking and making a clean distinction between pedestrian and automobile, and we agree with staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Staff input, please.
Okay, and just to clarify what Mr. Fitzsimmons talked about, our recommendations were that the original site plan submitted showed that showed 8.5-foot wide spaces at about an 18-foot depth, and our recommendation for this particular area would be to use a standard 9-foot wide space and go with a 22-foot depth, which will make it function better, probably with respect to like pedestrian access, maneuvering in and out of the spaces, and besides that, on the north side of 11th Street is alignment of the proposed streetcar, and having the additional depth should help all drivers be able to maneuver in and out without ever having to encroach on the westbound lane of 11th Street, which is where the streetcar will be operating. So since the applicant has indicated agreement with those particular changes, staff could recommend approval of the request as presented.
Okay. I have a motion concerning 5F.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the applicant's request with the staff provision that the parking spaces be 9 feet wide, having a minimum perpendicular depth of at least 22 feet.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5F with staff comments.
Second.
From Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion on this item?
I'd like to ask,
Yes, sir.
I see the note that the dumpster enclosures are not part of our deal, but what's indicated in front of the dumpster enclosures? Is that just indicating a trash truck backing up to it?
Yes.
Okay, not a parking space.
Correct.
Unless there's signage, I know that it's not deep enough and all that, but it looks like it could be mistaken for a parking place with that sawtooth pattern. I wouldn't ask for this now, but it might be something that you consider in the future if it ends up being if people end up parking there at lunchtime and running into Edna's and all, that it be signed somehow this is not a parking space.
Understood.
But I think that with the hotel across the street and all the stuff in here, I think having a nice, easily identifiable pedestrian pathway across the north end of Plaza Court's a good idea. And there's a certain charm to how clunky it looks back there to me, having grown up in the neighborhood, but it's probably going to make it look a lot better too.
Okay, any other discussion on item 5F? We have a motion to approve item 5F from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Miller, to include staff comments. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Thanks, sir. Okay, we go on to 5G. Betsy Ohl, to consider a request to establish all-way stop control at the intersection of 1 Dartmoor Boulevard and Northwest 191st Street, and 2 Stillstone Way and Northwest 188th Street. Anybody here to speak on this? Yes, sir. Can I have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Nicholas Ia, 1408 Northwest 190th. I had a couple questions, if I could, just to start out from this report. On page 2, if you guys have that in front of you, it says this plan is adopted by the City Council on July 9th of 2015. Does it matter when we submitted this plan, or is everything kind of retroactive to this new plan now?
No. This is Plan OKC is kind of like it's the city's latest comprehensive plan with respect to like new land development and things like that. It has no bearing. The only thing that it did is we did have a roadway classification plan for like collectors, minor arterials, major arterials, and as a part of that plan, a bunch of the connector streets replaced the description of collector streets that was in the previous plan. So no, it doesn't have any bearing on your particular application. It's just clarity.
Okay, just wasn't sure on that if it changed some things since we did submit this in May or June. If we could go to the intersection of Dartmoor and Boulevard, there's also a street, a couple pictures of a street view on this as well. I don't know if you guys can pull that up. It may be like towards page 16. Now this one, I know the volume of traffic is not there, but I do want to take into effect that, you know, right now we've got a three-way stop with no yield sign, or there's a three-way intersection basically with no yield signs and no stop signs. So you've got traffic coming from the east, the west, and in from the entrance of the addition going south. And I just don't know if anybody knows the right-of-way there. There's 7 houses on the south side of 191st that are being built or are completely built now that are for sale. So there's going to be more traffic than what is showing right now on there. And I just think we're just waiting for an accident to happen at some point in time. And so I would like to see if the traffic volume's not there, would we consider at least a yield sign there on 191st coming from Chestnut Oak, possibly, just because I just think at least some type of yield sign would be a concession there and not necessarily doing a 3-way stop. If that would be in consideration, if we could look at doing that. I think that would be beneficial for the residents there, and it'd probably suffice all the residents if we could at least compromise maybe on that. So if you'll take that in consideration, that'd be great. And then on the one on Shillstone and Northwest 188th, the residents want a stop sign there or a 3-way stop. I don't really see it, but there's a long way, I don't know how long Shillstone is, and I think the residents there are just concerned about people speeding on that roadway with there not being any type of signs, probably with over a 2,000, 3,000 foot length road. We did put up those traffic devices to see what the speed was. I don't know if that's a big indication of traffic or speed when we're only doing it for an hour, and it's at 9 o'clock in the morning. A lot of the residents have kids that go to a school, and they go out the back way. So I don't know if those are big indications of what the speed, how fast they're really driving, or how much traffic is there. So I don't know if there's any other solutions there besides the 3-way traffic or 3-way stop sign to keep the traffic or to keep the speed down a little bit. And I don't know. I mean, I'm open to suggestions on that if there were anything there. We do have a yield sign on Northwest 188th, so that's good. I just don't know if there's anything we can do with not having anything at all on Shillstone.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Do we have anybody else that wishes to speak on item 5G? Yes, ma'am. Can I have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, my name's Debbie Swansberger. I live at 18808 Shillstone Way, and I really don't want the stop sign there because it'll be right in front of my house. My mailbox is right there. The driveway's just a few feet from there.
You're talking on item part 2? Yeah, part.
Yes, the stop sign they want on 188th and Shillstone Way.
Mm-hmm. So you don't want?
And I don't want
any stop signs?
Not the one, no, not in front of my house anyway. They want a 3-way stop.
Right, yeah, they're asking for a 3-way.
Yes.
And you're saying you don't want?
No, because, I mean, we live right on 188th and Shillstone Way, and I just feel like we'd have cars in front of our house all the time. So I do.
So you're the one on the other side of the street of the entry, where that one street comes in. You're on the, what page is this one?
See, there's my driveway right there to the left, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right there by that mailbox.
Yes.
Okay.
And that'd be the only way where they could put it. I don't know where else.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, anybody else to speak on item 5G? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
Okay, you've got our comments before you. I guess we'll take them in order. The first part is addressing a request for all-way stop at Dartmoor Boulevard, Northwest 191st Street. You can see that we've got 1,227 vehicles per day entering the intersection. That's a sum total of everything on all approaches. The city's current policy for considering the use of all-way stop would be looking at total traffic entering volume about 1875. So the request is about, the traffic entering volume is about two-thirds that based on the city's current policies. You can see that we have an 85th percentile speed of 24 miles an hour. So this particular location is not really subject to, it looks like, any unusual speed conditions. There are no collisions. There's nothing particular unusual about the intersection. The use of an east-west yield is something that can be handled administratively since there are no traffic controls currently in place, and that would probably be appropriate at that particular location. It could be either that or it could be a southbound. It would be one or the other, but probably east-west could be very well appropriate for this particular neighborhood. With respect to Part 2, which is at the intersection of Shillstone and Northwest 188th Street, that one's got about 43% of the required traffic entering volume for considering the use of all-way stop control. As was noted, there is yield control on Northwest 188th Street there currently. The one thing we did notice at that particular intersection is that at the 85th percentile speed, even though the streets are posted 25 in the area through the neighborhood, we got a 30-mile-an-hour 85th percentile speed. But at Shillstone and 188th Street is where we, during our speed study, which was conducted by hand using basically a laser speed detector, we did notice one vehicle was traveling about 41 miles per hour on that particular roadway. When it comes to speeds, we don't typically collect it using the road tube counters. They give you kind of rudimentary information, but they don't give you specifics. So we'll go out there and we'll conduct spot speed studies manually. At this point in time, neither of the intersections would meet any of the city's criteria or the MUTCD criteria for the use of all-way stop control. Action on the item would be at the discretion of the commission.
Do we have a motion concerning item 5G?
I'll move to not approve the application.
Okay, we have a motion to not approve item 5G 1 and 2 from Commissioner Witcher. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion?
I do think that the yield signs at the intersection with Dartmoor are a good idea. When I looked at it, it makes sense to do something there, and if yield signs are an appropriate response, I think that's a good idea. The other location, Shillstone and 188th, just speaks once again to the work that Commissioner Schuline and Littlefield are doing to try to get some kind of traffic calming options besides stop signs.
Okay, any other discussion on item 5G? Yes, ma'am.
On 188th Street, is the current yield sign on what, the eastbound as it's approaching Shillstone, like the others?
Yes, Shillstone, traffic on Shillstone has the right-of-way, 188th Street, because it tees into the intersection, and the only option you have is to turn left or right. It's got a yield, is controlled by a yield sign.
I have to say, so Shillstone looks like a thoroughfare to me. When you're coming in off of 191st, and then if you're going to go south on Shillstone, it's just wide open, which seems at some point to be a little problematic, which if you're getting a 41 mile per hour on that, it seems like the yield sign there is a little bit of a missed opportunity to address, and I know you said the traffic calming there. I mean, Shillstone is picture perfect for something.
Well, that's exactly what we're saying with the traffic calming, that
well,
this
in
is
the absence of traffic calming, they're dealing with 41 miles an hour right in their front yard.
Well,
so
that's the exception when you look at on page 19, the majority is in the 20s, just above 25.
What's the 85? What's the 85 on there?
85th percentile is 30. And when we studied it, we'll always study the street that's not controlled or the one that would probably give us a tendency to get the higher speed readings.
I hear you. I just feel like it's leaving a need unaddressed, and it's an important need to them. So is there something else that could be offered up? I mean, I know they're not asking for anything besides the stop signs, but is there something that can be done if stop signs are not an option here?
Well, currently the intersection is controlled by, the 188th Street approach is controlled by a yield sign. And you could do something that it could be modified so that it'd be somewhat similar to what's probably going to happen over at Dartmoor and 191st Street, where basically the road with the through traffic, in that particular case, 191st Street, since Dartmoor Boulevard tees into it, yield signs will probably go up on, if all-way stop isn't improved there, yield signs will go up on the east-west approaches. The intersection could be reconfigured so that yield signs go up on Shillstone and then are removed from 188th Street.
I think that feels like it's creating an inconsistency with the other patterns on 189 and 90.
That's the thing. On a normal T intersection, it's the one coming in.
The entering road gets the yield.
Right.
It's just leaving this big open raceway. That's a strong word here. But when you live on the road, it feels like it probably. So, I don't know, I'm belaboring. I just feel like the application certainly has merit, and it feels like we just don't have a good solution to offer. And that,
which is the 2-year effort on traffic calming.
I know.
Yep.
I understand, but I just feel for the neighborhood.
Well, and that's where we're going in planning for new areas, that you don't create a 1,200-foot road that's straight in the middle of a housing area, because then you're going to get the 35, 40 mile an hour. You find a way to keep it all slow, curvy, housing area look. But what do we do with established areas? And that's what we're trying to figure out.
One of the speed repeat backs, I mean, is there anything else like that? I mean, does that have to come in there with their request, or?
The driver feedback.
Yeah. I mean, I'm belaboring it. I feel for the situation in the application, and it's sort of the same song, 71st verse, something.
Yes, sir. You have a comment?
What about speed bumps? I mean, is that
well,
an option at all?
Let me just explain what we've done. Over our time here, this has come up, speeding in housing areas, in established housing areas, where when they built the housing area, they didn't consider long stretches in the middle of housing areas to turn into raceways. So what we've done is we have some effort being done from a subcommittee to create a package or a plan that the city could adopt to do traffic calming in established areas, one, and to help planning department not build places that would have raceways. And of course, speed bumps is a thing, changing the curb, just bringing the curbs in and making it narrow and then making it back out with no parking. There are things that can be done to traffic calm. We're at the 50-60% portion of the effort. So right now, like she said, there is no solution to give you, because we've also done some studies, staff has done some studies that said stop signs doesn't slow anything down, that they'll just stop and then go back to their normal speed.
Sure.
So, yes, sir, it is a concern that we have, and we're trying to get there.
I wanted to ask, is there a homeowners association?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if, and you may have already done this, or the association may have already done this, but to communicate through the newsletter or the Facebook page or whatever communication you have, because generally speaking, and I looked we've just got limited amount, but I looked at a map of the whole area and how, how you connect, Danforth and Western and down south, and chances are really, really good that it's neighbors who are driving 41 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour. And to do what you can communicating with them, because I've given the example in Traffic Commission many times in my neighborhood where we have the same issue, and think a stop sign will help it, and 3 or 4 years down the road, people say, gosh, you're speeding, we need another stop sign. A few years after that, they're speeding, we need another stop sign. So the stop signs ultimately don't solve the problem, and it seems like it's just kind of a maintenance thing of, reminding ourselves in the neighborhood that we're the ones who are doing this. So that, I don't think that's necessarily a solution, but it may raise some awareness.
Well, and that's a good point, because I do think some of that is probably construction, probably neighbors. I have seen several times where it is a thoroughfare over to Twin Oaks, which is an addition that connects to Barrington, which we use Twin Oaks to get to our school. So it kind of goes back and forth with both those additions. So that is a good point, though.
And you bring up another thing. I mean, as the neighborhood, it doesn't look like there's that many more lots that need to be built out, but as it fills in and, people park on the street, stuff like that, it may tend to slow the traffic down.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments on item 5G? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner, let's see here. Motion from Commissioner Witcher to disapprove item 5G, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Okay, can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is disapproved. And staff, you're going to talk to the applicants and these people?
Well, at this point in time, we'll go ahead and install east-west yields on 191st Street at Dartmoor. All right.
Okay. So now we go on to item 5H, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President Johnson and Associates, Inc., and Traffic Management Division. Consider request to establish a full-time passenger loading zone on the east side of North Blackwelder Avenue from approximately 310 feet south to 440 feet south of the south curve line of eastbound West Memorial Road. Anybody here to speak? Yes, sir.
Commissioner Kula, I have a professional conflict, and so I need to remove myself from the discussion and voting.
Okay, thank you very much. So if the record could show that Commissioner Witcher is removing himself from the horseshoe, and we still have a quorum. Okay, and sir, if I can have your name, address, up to 5 minutes, and you've already turned in one of these?
Yeah, I will.
All right, thank you very much.
Caleb Morgan, Johnson Associates, 20 Sheridan. We are requesting that this be considered in accordance with the staff comments. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Staff input?
What you're looking at is a request for a passenger loading lay-by in the area of some proposed development. Currently, there is practically no development along this particular segment of Blackwelder. It won't be in an area where it's within the limits of an intersection, so at this point in time, action on the loading zone would be at the discretion of the Commission. We presented this, though, if the Commission is going to consider recommending it for approval, that the approval should include the fact that the loading zone be in effect on a full-time basis so that it doesn't get used for parking purposes.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning 5H?
Motion to approve with staff recommendation.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hale with staff recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on item 5H? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5H from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. The motion does include staff comments. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, there he comes. And could the record show that Commissioner Witcher has returned? And we go on now to item 6, comments from citizens. Okay, now reports from other traffic commissioners, et cetera. So let's go to Commissioner Witcher.
I have nothing to report.
Came back just for that. All right. And then we go to Commissioner Hale.
Nothing to report, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Yockel.
No, thank you.
I do have one thing to bring up is dealing with the, I'm going to get all my words wrong here, but the Transit Authority, the Turnpike Authority, wanting to connect the southeast route from somewhere on I-40 in Peebly, shooting all the way up through from there, going up to, I believe, Luther or somewhere up in that area to connect. The concern deals with, of course, Ward 4, which is my ward. I'd like to just put on record to remind that back in 2004, we did a Southeast Sector Planning Conference. All the sectors of the cities were breaking out into different sectors, and the planning department did effort in each of these sectors, and I was a member of that. And one of the areas that we looked at was we recommended to the City Council that there not be a southeast loop connecting to I-44 going through the southeast sector of Oklahoma City, which would, if the current proposal from the Oklahoma Transit Authority for the Turnpike, 240 would grow in the amount of traffic. I-35 coming up, people take 240, they connect to I-40 right there at Choctaw Road, go to Peebly. That whole area would get extra effort or extra work, traffic, and then of course, never mind all the turnpike being built from I-40, 1 mile each side of Peebly is the last words that got put out in the news, all the way up. It was very clear the effort and the wants of the community in 2004, which the city did approve as the Southeast Sector Plan, that was a comment that we did not want that. And in fact, there was some comment that was in the news, and I don't know if it came from the Turnpike Authority or just speculated, that once that turnpike is built and that connection to Peebly and I-40, that the next step would be then going south towards Lake Thunderbird, heading south of Norman, which therefore would create that passageway from south of Norman by Lake Thunderbird through Ward 4 of Oklahoma City to connect to the turnpike that would have been built in the next 3 years going up to Tulsa. There's an editorial in the Oklahoman Today from the acting director of the Turnpike Authority talking about how good that is to have this turnpike and to move traffic for the state. And I'd just like to say that we, as the citizens of Oklahoma City in Ward 4, Southeast Sector, made a recommendation to the city that we do not want that kind of stuff. And the city did approve it. So I would hope that the city, and we do have some legislative people, they came and talked to us a couple months ago, if you remember, they came out on some other issues, that the legislative people for the city reread that and understand that that is the effort, that's what we wanted, was to not have this turnpike. And of course, as we found out with the transportation network vehicles, the state's going to do what the state is going to want to do, but the city did make a comment on that. So I'd just like to get that on record and ask that the city legislative consultants, advocates or whatever, make sure that they reference that plan and understand what we wanted out in that area. So there's my comments. Thank you very much for your time. Counselor, anything for us? Staff, any further input?
No. The only other thing I have to offer is our monthly report on the installation of parking and yield controls, and that's just for your information.
Okay. Is there any other business that needs to be done? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second? Second. Okay, let's have our votes. And we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Stair 3 and 4, and he's got card readers inside the stairs. So to get out of the staircase onto a floor, you have to have a card or code or whatever.
Correct.
And those were the instances where code says it's got to be egress in both directions. And we have that exception that allows up to 4-story stairs.